It sounds absolutely unbelievable today, but the two countries now threatening to wipe each other off the map were once the closest of friends. Yep, we're talking about Iran and Israel. And this wasn't just some casual friendship. This was a deep, strategic, and super secret alliance. I mean, on one side, you have this bitter rivalry we all see today. But on the other, a past where their leaders met in secret. They exchanged gifts, they signed confidential agreements. Their partnership was once so strong, it was actually held up as an example for the entire region. So how in the world did this secret love story even begin? What brought these two incredibly unlikely nations together? And, maybe more importantly, what was the huge seismic event that turned this deep friendship into the bitter animosity we see today? Okay, let's dive into this. To really get this friendship, we have to rewind the clock. We're going back to a time when the Middle East looked very, very different. The seeds of their alliance were planted in the shifting sands of that post-colonial world. So after World War I, the massive Ottoman Empire just collapses. And in its place, Arab nationalism starts to surge, with all these newly independent Arab nations wanting to unite. Well, this left two major powers in the region feeling increasingly isolated. Iran, which, remember, is Persian, not Arab, and in 1948, the brand new Jewish state of Israel. And right there, you have a classic case of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Iran's monarch, the Shah, he was worried that a big unified Arab bloc would threaten his throne and Iran's influence. Meanwhile, the new state of Israel was literally surrounded by hostile Arab nations that had attacked it on the very day it was created. They were both outsiders in their own neighborhood. This shared fear led to this really brilliant strategic policy from Israel's first prime minister, David Ben-Gurion. It was called the Peripheral Doctrine. The idea was pretty simple. Since we're surrounded by enemies, let's go befriend our enemies' neighbors. And if you look at a map, the biggest, most important non-Arab neighbor on that periphery was, of course, Iran. And you know what? The doctrine actually worked. In 1950, Iran became only the second Muslim-majority nation, right after Turkey, to give what's called de facto recognition to the State of Israel. This was the first official step in what would become a long and very secret partnership. Their relationship quickly became what you'd call an open secret. I mean, everybody knew about it, but nobody talked about it officially. The Shah of Iran even let Israel open this massive mission in Tehran that did everything an embassy does. But to avoid making the Arab world angry, it didn't have an Israeli flag and was just called the Israeli Trade Office. So, with the foundation all laid out, the relationship moved into what people call a golden era. And just how deep this secret partnership went, well, it's truly astonishing. For the Shah, the reasons were super clear. First, he wanted to modernize Iran, make it a real powerhouse, and he knew he needed Israel's advanced tech and intelligence to do it. Second, he was genuinely terrified of Egypt's president Gamal Abdel Nasser, who was the leader of this whole pan-Arab movement. And third, the Shah was a very close ally of the United States, and the U.S. was strongly pushing for this Iran-Israel alliance to counter Soviet influence in the region. The level of cooperation was just staggering, especially when you look at intelligence. Get this, Israel's famous spy agency, the Mossad, literally helped create and train the Shah's feared secret police, SAVAK. We're talking about teaching them interrogation and surveillance techniques. On top of that, Iranian pilots were training in Israel, and both countries were even working together to develop advanced missile technology. But here it is, the single most incredible irony of this entire story. The very same Iranian nuclear program that Israel now sees as an existential threat was actually a gift from the United States and Israel. Yeah. Under the American Atoms for Peace program back in the 60s, the U.S. gave Iran its first nuclear reactor, and Israeli scientists were the ones who trained their Iranian counterparts. Just wild. Their economic partnership was just as clever. So Israel needed oil, right? But the Arab states were boycotting them. And Iran had tons of oil, but they couldn't get it past the Suez Canal, which was controlled by Egypt. So what do? They build a secret pipeline together. Iranian oil gets shipped to Israel's southern port of Eilat, piped across the whole country to the Mediterranean port of Ashkelon, and from there, it was sold to Europe, totally bypassing the Arab chokehold. It was a 50-50 joint venture that made both of them a lot of money. And this little story just perfectly shows how deep the personal ties were. High-level meetings were happening all the time. Prime Minister Ben-Gurion once flew into Tehran wearing a wig just to avoid the press. By the 1970s, there were direct flights between the two countries, and Tehran was just full of Israeli engineers, military advisors, and agricultural experts, all helping to modernize Iran. It was, without a doubt, a golden age. So for decades, this secret alliance basically defined the balance of power in the Middle East. But then, in a single year, one massive event didn't just end the friendship, it flipped the entire board over. That year was 1979. The year of the Iranian Islamic Revolution. This was the moment that changed absolutely everything, setting these two best friends on a collision course that is still going on to this day. The revolution, led by Ayatollah Khomeini, overthrew the Shah and installed this radical new Islamic Republic. And Khomeini's entire ideology was the exact opposite of the Shah's. He immediately declared the Shah a traitor for his pro-Western policies and branded Israel not just as a rival, but as an enemy of Islam. The symbolic end came fast. The Israeli trade mission in Tehran, their unofficial embassy, was stormed by revolutionaries. Just a few weeks after the revolution, the Israeli flag was torn down and in its place up went the Palestinian flag. The Palestinian leader, Yasser Arafat, was personally invited by Khomeini to come to Tehran to officially open the new Embassy of Palestine in that very same building. So the friendship was officially over. But the story doesn't end there. The relationship didn't just die. It curdled into something way more dangerous, leading directly to the shadow war we're seeing play out today. And here's one last, mind-bending, ironic twist. A year after the revolution, when Iraq invaded Iran, Israel had a dilemma. So driven by that old logic of the enemy of my enemy, Israel secretly supplied weapons to its new ideological foe, Iran, all to weaken their shared Arab enemy, Iraq. It was like the last dying gasp of their old strategic partnership. I mean, look at this. It was a complete reversal. Before 1979, Iran was a pro-Western monarchy and a secret ally of Israel. After 1979, it becomes an anti-Western Islamic Republic and Israel's sworn enemy. And that nuclear program, which was once a symbol of their cooperation, was about to become the ultimate symbol of their new conflict. After the war with Iraq finally ended in the late 80s, Iran restarted its nuclear program in earnest. And by the 1990s, Israel started to see this program, now in the hands of a hostile revolutionary regime, as an existential threat. This was it. This was the point of no return. The old friendship was officially buried, and the shadow war of sabotage and assassinations began. So we've gone from a secret love story, born of shared fears, to a golden age of cooperation, and then a complete 180 into a bitter shadow war. It is one of the most incredible turnarounds in modern history, and it really just begs the question, what could the next chapter possibly hold for these two former friends?